All right, is anybody out there? Let's see what we got. Oh, we do have some people here. All right, I'm going to get a few of you guys up on stage. I see you, Rob Cameron. I see you, Tom Preston Warner. Hello, hello.
Are we ready for 4 total video streams?
Well, we could do 5, I think. Or was it 6? Tom's getting ready. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many it was. It's going to be great. We're going to have a great time. Hello, everyone. Thank you. We are trying out Livestorm, livestorm.co for the first time. We've been using a different service. So let us know what you think of the service. We'd love to know afterward how the Ethan, good to see you. It's been a while. Hey, man. We'd love to know how the video stream works, wherever you are in the world, and the features, etc. But I think we're going to get better recording. We've had problems with being able to record the screen share in the past, so this should improve that. And that's all I have to say about those things.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. Hey, morning, everybody. Rob, you're out of focus, but I can see your shelves. Okay, while we're getting warmed up here, Rob, do you have anything to show us from your shelves? Yes, Jeff, it'll be on YouTube.
I have my newest acquisition. I haven't even opened it yet, though. This is a DLX scale Optimus Prime.
Ooh.
The Bumblebee movie, and it's in plastic. Can't really see it.
Are you going to keep it in the plastic forever so it stays mint condition?
Now I'll open it up on the shelf.
Mint condition.
But it's like a realistic Optimus Prime. It's very nice.
All right, so
for anyone realistic, it would be full size. Get a full size Optimus Prime.
Maybe I should build one.
There you go.
That would be fun. I feel like someone in the Bay Area, has no one done that yet? That just seems like a Burning Man thing. Like they have the giant robot wars. Have you seen those where they actually build the robots?
They're working on one. Isn't Japan working on a Gundam guy?
Yeah, I've seen huge. They're like 5 stories tall or something. And they move around. They're like...
Yeah, it's massive.
Man, see, welcome to the future, everybody. Can't enable. Oh, so okay, that's a good question. All right, well, I think we get started here. This one's a little different. The stage area, we can only have 6 people on at a time. So we'll introduce ourselves here in a second, but let me introduce the format we're going to be doing today. But the first 45 minutes or so, we're going to do presentations, all focused on contributing to RedwoodJS. We will be recording this, and we'll be posting this to YouTube after. We have a YouTube channel now, guys. Hey, does this make us, like, YouTubers? Like, can we officially say we're YouTubers?
Absolutely.
Things I never thought I'd be able to say about myself. Anyway, we have a YouTube channel, and we've been recording all of these meetups. So this will be there afterward. But the presentations, as they're going on, we'll have a few people come and go. And award-winning, yeah, there we go. The community's award-winning, Danny. But we have a chat. We have a new questions tab, so we have a couple of things going on. And here was the idea on that: post the questions that you want us to loop back to at the end of the presentations. So we'll try to catch some as we go, but when people are presenting, it's hard to see the questions. So I thought we'll kind of do the first 45 minutes of presentations, and we'll come back and we'll try to hit the questions tab. Does everybody see the questions tab? And then go through those for the discussion. And at that time, that's when other people you could come up on the stage if you want to join for live video, audio. You don't even have to turn on your video, depending on where you are. We could do it that way, but we want to shift from presentations into open discussion and conversation. And that's what we're going to try. Let us know how it goes as we go. And yeah, we're just excited to have everybody join us today. So did I miss anything? By the way, I'm David Price. I help out on the RedwoodJS core team. I'm on the West Coast in very wintry California, San Francisco right now. It's cold here. So I don't know what's going on, but anyway, wherever you are in the world, welcome. We're really glad you're here today, and we want the RedwoodJS team, community, and the project want a jammy this week. Rob, tell us about our jammy. Tell us what we want.
Apparently, it's like actual jammies, like pants. I'm assuming with like Netlify logo on them or something. I don't know. I didn't even see a picture of what the actual award was. But
tell people about the award. Sorry, and introduce yourself. That was meant to be a segue. But I would love some Redwood jammies. That'd be great.
I think that's what the actual prize was.
Do we all get them, or do we get one pair and we have to like mail it to each other every year?
We have to share.
I mean, we have 120 contributors, maybe 130 now. So that's a lot of jams. That's a lot of jam sharing.
Everybody can wear them for 2 days and they have to ship it to the next person. I'm Rob Cameron. I'm Kannakin on GitHub, RedwoodJS core guy. Working on, I don't know if people know that working on the tutorial part 2 or the tutorial. We've been colloquially calling it. It's going to deal with like some role-based authentication and then sort of the Redwood ideal development flow where you're doing tests in Storybook as you're building your components. So that's the idea with that. I'm not actually sure what the Jammy Award, it kind of came out of the blue. Like we missed the announcement, right? Didn't someone tell us in the chat, like, hey, you guys just won an award? We were all surprised.
No, I was watching. I saw it live. Yeah.
It was what, the most disruptive technology?
Disruptive
jam
product
stack?
or service.
Yeah.
We are very disruptive sometimes. Anyway, it was exciting. Hats off to the whole community because it just speaks to. It's been 9 months. Has it been 9 months? I mean, so
March.
Since March-ish, and just amazing what everyone's doing and how excited everyone is about this project. So super fun. All right, Tom, your turn. Who are you? And you know what, Tom? Why don't you just? We'll even ditch the stage, but why don't you just take over and get started on some things, and then Dom, I'll get Dom up on stage next after you.
Sounds good. Okay, hello, Tom Preston-Werner, core member of Redwood, and started this with Peter Pistorius almost 2 years ago now. And so I wanted to talk to you today about contributing. That's what we're here for today, to talk about mostly. And I'll just jump right into it because I know you're all anxious to learn about it. So, whoops. Let me choose. Oh, I can choose an application window. I'll just do the whole screen. So I wanted to start with where you'll start. If you want to contribute to Redwood, or if you already have, this is the place that you're going to go to find all of the things that you care about. RedwoodJS.com. And most of the links that you're going to care about are up here. So here's where our GitHub is. And if you want to, if you love Redwood, we encourage you to give us a star. It's really helpful in sort of communicating to the world what we're about, that, you know, this thing has some steam, that we're going places, it gets more people excited to be involved. So please star us if you can on GitHub. And kind of the main places where we talk about things are on Discourse, which is our forum. That's easily, we kind of prefer that people talk there about long form discussions because they become indexed by search engines. It makes it easier for other people to find them later on. And then if you just want to kind of chat about Redwood in general, or what you're working on, or just meet other people in the community in a more casual kind of way, that's why we have the Discord here. We host the Discourse forum ourselves, so there's no privacy concerns. Nobody else has access to that data. We never share any of the email, information. There's no third-party stuff on there, so it's totally secure and private. Discord is hosted by Discord, of course. So if you're concerned about anything that goes on there, then you can always use the forum and know that you've got privacy covered. But Discord is really nice for meeting other people and just chatting about what you're working on. And so today I'd like to really focus on what we're about as a community and how we think about people contributing to Redwood. So one goal that I have for Redwood is that we build the very best community out there for an open source project. I really want to approach that thoughtfully and come up with systems, both technical and social, for doing that really well. So if you've been in the forums, you've probably seen David Price, who you just met, in there a lot. He spends most of his time in the forums, answering questions in issues, helping people figure out how to contribute, newcomers, people that have a lot of experience. David is doing amazing work on being very welcoming. And this is something that you don't often see in open source communities. We have David able to dedicate all of his time most of his time to be able to engage with the community, which is really important to us right now as we build towards a 1.0. We need your help, right? We need more than just a couple of us working on Redwood to meet the goals that we have for a 1.0 release. And David is there to hold your hand as you go. So any questions that you have, ask them, and one of us will respond. Often David, but we have many people now who are active in the community that are happy to respond. Same on Discord or Discourse. Wherever you feel comfortable asking your questions, please do. Don't be afraid, even if it's your first time contributing. We are here for you. We want you to contribute. We want to create an amazing and diverse group of contributors to Redwood, because Redwood is for everyone. We want Redwood to be a framework for everyone and cover all the use cases that all the people that are using Redwood have discussions about them and approach them and get them solved. So that's why we want you as part of this community. So if you're ready to contribute, you might be wondering, what are we working on? What do we care about right now? Well, if you come to the website, then we have a roadmap document that we put together that talks about the different parts of the system that we're working on to get it ready for 1.0, which we hope to do by the end of the year. Still, it's coming up. I've been saying that for a long time, but we're getting closer. But I think we made a huge amount of progress, and I think we can still do it. And so here is the document, and you can read about each one of these and see a little bit about what we mean by that, right? So accessibility, authentication, some of these are really close. We've done most of the things in authentication. We wanted to get authentication done through role-based access control, which is done. There's still probably a few bugs here and there. And you can go through here and just read about these and see if any of these speak to you. If you say, well, I have some experience in performance, and I could help try to get our Lighthouse scores better on the example blog application, then this is where you would start. You come read about performance, and then you can go to the project board. So each of these links to a project board on GitHub where we're keeping track of the work that needs to be done there. So performance, we're in a place right now where we really need to do a little bit more to refine like what goes into 1.0. As you see, this column is blank, but there are some things that we can consider here. But if you have ideas, then we would love for you to come and define like what do we like, help us decide what we need for 1.0. Like if there are things that you have done before performance-wise, for instance, come have a discussion with us. We'll talk to you about it. You can say, all right, well, here's a piece of work that I can do. It's not too big. And here's a pull request, and we can add it to the performance board here and work it through. And so the same is true for many of these other things. So that's where you can start your journey if you're brand new and you want to figure out where is best to contribute. You can see how far along we are on each of these topics. And really, GitHub is, like I said before, GitHub is really where it's at. So you can go and you can see all the projects here as well. You can look at the issues. We have tags for Hacktoberfest if you would like to get some free swag from DigitalOcean and participate in Hacktoberfest. We are participating in that, and these are often, the Hacktoberfest ones are often really good for newcomers, new contributors to come in here and help out. And so we have, there's a lot of outstanding work to do. There's still some bugs. And anything that you are willing to help us with, we will help you get started. So let me just say that again, so you know, do not be afraid. If you want to participate, and we would love for you to participate, and we will do everything we can to help you be successful in Redwood. And for me, I do open source because I love coding and I love creating value for other people and making other developers' lives easier. Open source can also be a really good way to get yourself out there, to become more attractive to people who are doing hiring, get people to see the kinds of work that you're doing out in the open. If you have time to be able to do that, it's a really powerful way to talk to potential employers and say, look, I'm active in this project. Look at what I've done and how I've helped. I'm part of this community. Look at me working with other people. It's really just working in the open is a powerful way to do that. And if you want to do that, then we're here to help you do that. So that's infinite Tom. So that's kind of where we're at with contributing. I hope I covered most of the things. David, let me know if there was anything else you wanted me to cover there. I just really want you to understand. I'll stop this so you don't have to look at 100 of me. I want everyone to understand that we're really intentionally trying to build this community in a way that creates an experience unlike any you've had in any other open source project that is better, where we have better documentation, better people acting better to each other, people being more helpful to each other than you've seen before. I want to see if that's possible. So that's what we're about, contributing with Redwood. Hey, Dom.
Hey, Tom.
I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks.
You're really, really quiet for me. I don't know if, yeah, is Dom super quiet for anyone else? David says same.
Does that help at all?
That's better.
Okay, cool. I'll go with that.
All right, then it's over to you, and I will drop off the screen if I can figure out how to do that.
Nice. Okay, so I'll pick up where Tom left off and show you a few more like docs and resources to help you get started with contributing. So if you go to the issues page, we have this great issue here by David, just detailing, like, especially for the Oktoberfest event, how.
Hey, Tom.
Oh yeah.
I want to introduce you. You didn't introduce. So
sorry.
No, share your screen. No, you're good. You're good. So we have a lot of different people participating in the project with Redwood. As I mentioned earlier, I think we're at 130 contributors across all our projects right now. And we have some people that have been with Redwood for, I mean, it's been months, but almost since the beginning, have been active across the community and projects. And Dom is one of those people. So hopefully you get to meet a couple others today, but a community lead. So Dom has done a phenomenal job helping in many different categories, but documentation was in pretty sorry shape. And then Dom showed up and helped us organize a ton of things. And documentation for us is as important as code. But I wanted to introduce Dom because he knows our documentation better than anyone else, but also because he's a community lead for the Redwood project and someone you can reach out to. Wherever you find Redwood, you can find Dom as well. So anyway, Dom, thank you. It's always a pleasure to have your help, and I'll let you get back to it now. But I couldn't let you go without people knowing.
Yeah, I always forget. Thank you, David. So yeah, I'm JTOR on GitHub, by the way, based in LA. So I go by that tag or Dom on the forums and Discord, but I'll show you that in a second. So this issue is where I'd start if you like after this conference and our meetup and everything. There's a lot of great links on here. All the stuff we're going to be talking about, you can find. So like the community forum and Discord chat, like if you open those up, it'll take you here. And we have a whole contributing tab. So like feel free to open a new topic and you would just put this category as contributing and just ask for help. Like we'll help you right away. I can even show the first, this is exactly how I did it a long time ago. I think Rob was the person who responded, and it was one of the nicest conversations like I ever had, and it was like super empowering. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It was this one here, how to think about scaffolds, like back in March, and I just wrote up this little post because I wanted to contribute to the scaffold command, and Rob just I think the next day like gave me this amazing response, and we had a great conversation, and I ended up that was my first PR like ever. So don't feel nervous or scared. You can also go on the Discord here. We have a contributing channel, and we just had one guy, I think Christian is how I'm going to pronounce this, but he wanted to contribute React Native side, and it was just he just messaged, and we've been going back and forth like for the past 2 days now, really. So there's probably like too many people who want to help you, so don't worry, like you're not bothering anybody. So these two places are great ways to find help. But if you want to find somewhere, something you should start working on, or because you just don't know, this link here, the good first issue, is going to be the best way to find that. So you can click that link and it'll take you here, but you can also just look for label good first issue, and then all of them will come up here. So we've kind of tried to vet these issues to make sure that they're approachable, like they're well defined, and it's like possible to finish them. Whereas like some issues require more like architecting than others. So I would look for any of these. It's a great way to get started. And once you get started, it's just really easy to keep going, because that first PR is really about like getting used to the framework and setting up your local dev environment. But any of these, like there'll be a conversation, usually the first issue, about like what's going on. So like this back functionality to the router. There's like, I posted a little description here of what we wanted, and Shakti here just said he wanted to work on it, and then we assigned him to it, and he's going for it. So that's just how it works. And just don't overthink it is all. Like so those Tom mentioned the roadmap. So if you have like if you don't see anything you like in the good first issues, the roadmap is a great place to look too. So each one of those like links to a project board. So I'll show like the TypeScript one here, for example. You click this, and then you get all the issues related to that, and you would find one here and get in touch with us. But if you don't see anything you don't like either, like we're always open for ideas or spikes. So like, don't feel like you have to have work on something we defined for you. But even if you're working on something we defined or something you defined yourself, like the first step is always just getting in touch with us. So, and then there's a few more docs on contributing. I just want to point you to, like there's one in the repo here. And this is more about like setting up your local development environment, like the nitty-gritty details of that. And we have like a great command called yarn redwood tools. It's abbreviated as RWT here. And I remember like back a couple months ago, we had to use like yarn link, I think, to set up a project. And it was like a little intimidating, but like I promise you, like it's never been easier to just like copy over your changes from the repo into like your actual app and see it going. It's like really empowering. And if you're more inclined to contribute on docs, if you go to the RedwoodJS website, there's a doc here for contributing specifically like documentation. And we have like a little primer on how we think about documentation, which is mainly Divio system. And it's like a really great read, and it'll get you to like understand documentation in a better way. But cookbooks are definitely one of the things we like the most. Like we like all docs, but cookbooks are especially awesome because it's just like cool ways to use Redwood. And I've really learned like a lot of the things that come out of here, especially after you finish the tutorial and you want to do something specific. Like all of these are really great and really detailed. And so I hope these resources are gonna, like if you're confused or looking for something, these will help you get started. This earlier here in this doc, there's also links to the packages. So like if you click this, it'll take you straight to the RedwoodJS API, like specifically how to contribute to this package for Redwood. Some of these are more done than others. Like I think the CLI here is like almost too long, but if you see like anytime there's details or there aren't details, like we definitely want to get in touch with you and talk to you, because we want to help you like succeed. And also we learn a lot just from every interaction. So those were like the primary resources, and I'll again like highlight this page here, and you can go here and you'll have all those links, like David laid them out really nice for you. So I think that's it, unless you wanted me to cover some more stuff, David.
Thank you. That was everything I wanted. Thank you for it feels like 10 years ago, quarantine time, but thank you for going with your first message. I remember that well. And that's a great, yeah, it's just a great story. So Dom's story applies to a lot of people, which is one, yeah, first PR. Was that your first open source contribution? Maybe not. I didn't know that about you.
No, that was like, I had opened like an issue before on a different repo that's like still open. You can go see it, you know? That's the thing about issues, is some of them never close, right? But,
yeah, that is the thing about issues. Yeah, that was great. Well, it's been a pleasure. And we've had conversations about this before, but any new project, culture, team, people, it's intimidating for anyone to get involved. So we just talk about that a lot and have people share their experiences of what it was like to get involved for the first time. But that was it. And here Dom is, and he's been just a massive help as a contributor to the project and to all these other people. So my mantra that I throw out a lot is that by helping each other be successful with Redwood, that's what makes Redwood successful. And that's been true of like working with you, Dom, and then watching you work with other people. So thanks so much. I'll take over from here. So I need a couple of volunteers. Dom, I can boot you off here.
Okay.
In a very gentle. This is a very gentle boot. Boop. Okay, I'm going to walk through a demo of setting up the framework and contributing, making some code modifications to the CLI package in the framework, and then we'll do some testing. I say we, and then creative PR. I'm not sure how this is going to go, so I need a couple things here. As I go, I won't be able to see the screen, and I won't be able to see questions. So we can either add your question to the chat tab, or if you want to put them in the questions tab, when we're done with the demo, we could loop back and then go through the questions from there. Also, I would love to have a volunteer. So I realize if someone is actually on the stage with me while I go through the demo, it's a great way to just ask the questions and things that I'm skipping. So preferably, if you've never contributed to Redwood before, or specifically if you haven't added code to the framework and gone through that process, I would love to have you join me on stage. You don't have to share your video. I just need you, and actually the less you know, the better. I just need you to stop me and ask when you want me to explain something better. And also my preference would be, I would love to have a woman join me, only because we always have dudes. We have so many and they're all great, but it'd be fantastic to change it up a little bit. So, okay, so going once, going twice, let me know in the chat if you'd be interested and brave and a courageous volunteer to join me on stage. The only thing you'll be doing is telling me when I'm doing something confusing and asking me to explain. So that is all. Anyone? I've got some people that I will just put on stage, but you know who you are. But I'd love to have some other volunteers first. So, all right, Esteban, that'd be great. We'll go in once, going twice if a woman wants to join me. But that's fine. Ooh, so many people typing. This is exciting. Someone's typing. Maybe no one's typing. All right, going once, going twice. All right, do it now, or else I'm going to grab Esteban. Okay, wait, and while I do this, so Danny, I was wondering if you would join me up here as well, because I also thought it'd be helpful to have somebody helping me out who knows what's going on. So because I don't live code very well. Okay, so we'll get Danny up here. If anyone else, Esteban, I'm going to grab you too. And again, no pressure on the video. I know sometimes, depending on where you are, it's not as comfortable, so I'll get you up here now. And I wanted everyone to meet Danny as well, because like Dom, Danny is another of our community leads. So you'll see him everywhere in the forums, in the Discord, and in the message queues. He's helping people out, but Danny's another person you can reach out to. Is it Esteban?
Yes, it is Esteban.
Pleasure.
Can you hear me all right? Good to meet you.
Yeah, I can hear you great. Where are you in the world?
Costa Rica.
Oh, how is it? So I wish I was in Costa Rica right now.
Sure. It's always a good time.
It's always a good time.
Everyone.
We don't get to travel here in the United States because people don't like us anymore, and there's some good.
You can actually come to Costa Rica now, I think.
We can?
We opened to California, I think this month.
Oh, so how big is your place, and are you okay with children? I have a few of them. Because you were inviting me, right?
I can get you a place. Probably not here though.
Okay, got it. We could do this demo in person. Anyway, hey, thank you for being the brave volunteer. And Danny, please introduce yourself. And Danny, Esteban. Hey.
Hey everyone. Hey. I'm Danny. I'm one of the community leads for Redwood. So I got started contributing to Redwood the same way Dom mentioned. It's just something I was trying to build something, came across an issue, and then realized, hey, these guys are really nice, they're helpful, but not only that, they want you to be part of building something really, really cool. And that's how I got involved. And the more involved I get, the more I want to be involved. So I'd encourage, especially like if you're not confident in, maybe you feel like, oh, I don't know enough. Honestly, you don't need to know much to start contributing. Like where I started from was literally, I had this one very specific problem, and then it kind of grew, just trying to help other people with problems that I solved. Yeah. And before I continue, I'm just curious, Esteban, were you on the podcast chat yesterday?
I was, yeah.
Oh,
That was
awesome.
you?
So we talked there too. Cool.
Yeah, yeah. That actually prompted me. I did a PR, very quick PR yesterday. I was going through documentation and found a few typos, so I very quickly fixed them. It was accepted this morning, I think.
Oh yeah, are you the?
It was the role base.
No,
typos.
your avatar. Your avatar is
A smiley.
no smiley. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, somebody. Okay.
Yeah, he was Esteban was asking about lock-in yesterday. So hopefully today you'll be able to see how. So of course you have to write your code in a specific way with Redwood, but for me, it doesn't really feel like one of those problems that are. It's not going to be something that holds you back, honestly, especially if you want to use React in the future anyway.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for the clarification.
All right, gents. Well, let's dive in here. Can you see my screen? I should be doing the full screen because I'll be flipping around through some things. I'm on the issues page for Redwood.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's absolutely no rules here. I'm making this up as I go. But my thought is, Esteban, when I'm making it seem like something is super obvious, but it's not clear to you, that means I'm not explaining it well. So you let me know. Interrupt me anytime. And Danny, when I do something dumb, that's where you're here to help me. So, and the other thing I'm demonstrating here is we need all kinds of people working on this project because not one of us is an expert across all the things, except for Peter maybe, who's not here today. But there's a lot going on to build a complete framework and integrate across so many different libraries, and it just takes a lot of people. So you'll notice that everyone has the feeling of at times of I don't understand fully what's going on, and that's because no one's the master of all these things. So anyway, that's why I need some help here today too. And sound good? Sound like a plan? Any questions before I get started?
No, sounds good.
Okay. All right. So I want to start with so basically picking up from where Tom and Dom led us. Where do you actually get started on contributing to the framework? So ideally, you'll start with an issue. And I created an issue here. If there's not an issue of interest and you know something, so for example, you find a bug, but you also know how to fix the bug, we really do prefer that you start with an issue because it allows for good communication and a track record and just it sets up context so people know what's going on. And we can also, it also helps alleviate the problem where someone creates a PR that's maybe not the right approach or not something that we want to do right now. And then we always feel bad when people put in time and it's not something we can accept right away. So issues help us sort through those things ahead of time. So here's an issue that's created, and I'll leave this up here. I'm going to take a stab at a part of this issue because there's several things we're doing to migrate to a new setup command. So you can get the history here. There's a little bit of information. And the main thing I wanted to point out for today is that we are going to be working together, the three of us, on migrating this. Formerly, we have a CLI for Redwood, and there was a generating auth provider command where you could set up netlify or auth0, and we want to move that to be a part of this new setup command. So I'm going to take a stab at that today, and what I'll put down here is going to be working on Redwood gen auth in a new PR. So this is because there's multiple parts of this issue. I just wanted to let people know in the community that I'm going to start working on that so that I don't duplicate efforts with anyone else. So that would be step one, issue and just communicate that you're going to work on something. Often, if you ask, we'll assign you to the issue so that people know that someone is working on it before PR comes in. Now, the next step will be some things that I've already done, but I want to show, we want to get, this is the main, we call this a framework repository, RedwoodJS.Redwood. And I want to work on this locally. So I'll show you, I use VS Code, what's happening there. But there's two important documentation, two docs I want to show you to help you get set up and then also know how to develop on the CLI package specifically. So Esteban, have you seen any of these docs yet? This main contributing one down here?
I glanced over it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. There's a lot going on in this document, but we've built some specific tooling because Node projects get kind of strange to work with locally when you have to work in kind of a project for actually testing the code itself, like is it functioning correctly, but then actually working on the packages themselves, right? So we've built some tooling to do that. Have you ever worked locally on any development with Node before, Esteban?
Yes, I have.
Okay, got it. So you're probably familiar. Have you Yarn linked before?
Not that I remember.
Okay, well, lucky you, because it's painful. So we tried. There's kind of a standard way to do this with Yarn and Yarn linking, which creates these aliases between directories, and it just didn't work very well. So the main things I wanted to highlight here is that I'll be using. Can you guys see the highlighting? Under local development, there's some instructions here, and I'm going to use this copy and watch method. And I won't go explicitly into details here, but this is where you could come back to learn about how the tooling that I'll be using is set up and instructions to use it. And then the one other thing I want to show you is the actual code that I'll be working on. And these are all of our packages that get published to NPM. So you recognize a lot of these names. We're going to be working on the CLI package today. And inside of our packages, we're getting better at this, but each package has its own README with instructions specific to how to contribute for that package. We haven't set this up for everyone, but for CLI, because there's more complexity here, and actually Dom is the one that got this going, we have a lot of really good information about how to set up CLI packages. You'll notice this is a bit of a, kind of a waterfall of information coming. So there's two things I want to highlight around here. I'm just going to kind of scroll down. Is one, we use the yargs library for building our CLI commands. So if you see yargs, you could go and learn how that works and how to structure our commands. And then two, there are specific, there's instructions for adding a command, but I wanted to, sorry, I'm flipping around really quickly. There's a few different types of commands we have. And so adding a command generally, but adding a generator, there's some specific instructions there because that's where all this template code. So Esteban, have you set up a Redwood project and maybe gone through the tutorial and done something like, Redwood generate component or Redwood generate scaffold?
No, the only thing that I've done is start the project and maybe like the initial commit. That's how far I got yesterday.
Okay. But, no, okay. That's totally fine. New. So all of when you get into the CLI, so Redwood uses the command line quite a bit. This is where all of that magic happens. And there's some things you need to know to create those commands or add to them. So, and quite all right. So we're going to be working here. And this is just another note. I reminded myself, I'll want to be changing this documentation. Well, just to make sure we have the right packages for this. So generate auth providers. This is what we'll be working on today. So that's the main documentation, and maybe I'll show it here, scrolling back up to the top. In the source code, what I will be doing within VS Code is moving, here's the setup command directory that we want to get to. So the actual, you'll see setup.js is here. We'll be working inside of this directory for setup. And what we have right now is that there's a generate command for auth. And we want to move all of this into the setup command. And there's some more explanation under the issue about what we're doing with that. We're really excited about the setup command and some things it's going to do. But effectively, anytime you have to do something once, it's like configuration, install packages, that will be a setup command. And we can create recipes of of commands within the set command itself. So that's what we're going to be doing. All right, boy, I think I covered all that. So now I'm going to actually get into the code. Any questions before we dive in? Danny, did I miss anything obvious?
So I think a difficult thing to just grasp on a screen share probably, Dev, is when you're going to show the contribution workflow, how you're going to test it on your Redwood app.
Yes.
Like to make that distinction where you're writing the code, because that was one of the things that I struggled with initially. I've gotten used to it, obviously, but
right.
Yeah. So we'll be writing code in this repo, but also, are you like how you're going to be testing it?
Yes, I'm going to show that too. Yep. I mean, that's the intention, so hold me to that, okay? I have notes. I just don't know if I'll follow my own notes. So we'll get to the part on the testing as well. Okay, so speaking of that, I use GitHub Desktop, but the first thing I've done already, because I work a lot, is I've pulled down this whole project locally. So you could open with GitHub Desktop if you're using that. Codespace is in beta. It's pretty cool. You had a chance to use that, but or you could just clone locally. So I've already done that, and here is my cloned repository. So next question, what size of screen do we need here? Is that good, or do you need larger text?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it at that because that'll give me a little more space on my screen to work with. So I have a clone of the framework, and the next thing I want to do, so Danny, this gets to your question, is let me close this. I'll open up a terminal. This is a handy little feature I ended up using quite a bit in VS Code. I don't know, can I make the font size bigger here? Let me know if you can't see the font size here. But so what Danny was just talking about is this is the frameworks, this is where the packages come from, but I need to create a fresh Redwood project because I want to be testing the functionality of the code that I'm working on. So I'll run the yarn yarn create Redwood app. And so Esteban, this is what you would have done yesterday, correct? When you were, does this look familiar? Okay.
Yeah.
And I just want a fresh project. And then I need to go, I've got it in a different directory, but I would put it in my repos directory, and we'd call it test2, and we could run through this. Now for demos, I don't type and talk very well. We've got a little command here so it doesn't go through the whole install process, but I just wanted to show that this is we call this a Redwood project. So this just created a Redwood project, and it's fresh. So it's at the latest code base, and it's untouched. So I haven't done any modification to it. And then inside of code, I already have one open, but I would open this is in my repos, and I already have a test ready to go. So this line is kind of a fun trick. This will open up that project inside of VS Code. I didn't do it. Look at that. See, I thought I'd do a trick. Normally I do this out of terminal, but let me see what we can do here. I'll just open the project. I thought I was going to get fancy, and I'll just do it this way. Okay, so on the left side, let's see if I can get this to work. On the left side is, don't do that. Okay, on the left side is the framework, and on the right side is my new project called Test. So that's a Redwood app. And there's a couple things visually to help me orient. So one, this little Redwood rust color footer bar thing at the bottom, that is installed by default to let you know that that's a Redwood framework. And then also, you'll notice here, look at this, I'm using the new fancy and improved Redwood VS Code editor. So Aldo is here too, and Aldo is the CEO of Decoupled Studio, and we have some really cool things happening in this VS Code extension. So it's meant to be a Redwood IDE, but that's another way that I know where my project is, because I've got some helpful tools that come out of that. So there we go. And this is I won't get too much into code base, but this is a fresh project over here. And I've already run yarn install on this. That's really important. But I'm going to be linking these two projects together so I can add new code in my framework packages, and then test it in my new project. Conceptually, does that make sense?
Yeah, so instead of going to the registry, you're going to your local copy?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So where is my, okay. I'm back, I looked at my notes. Okay, so, yep. All right, so first thing I want to do is, since I've been working in my framework before, I've got a couple of commands down here that I almost always run. And the first one is git clean -fxd. And what this does is it resets my node modules. So any artifacts I could have from like running on a different branch or having test packages installed, what this does is it just wipes everything out and resets it to 0. And then what I always forget to do after that is run yarn, because now I need to actually reinstall everything. But it's all set up, and I'm running on the main branch, so that's another gotcha that I'll fall into sometimes. And you can back out of this, but I'm making sure I have everything set up on main. And then as these things are installing, I'll go ahead. I want to create a new branch to work on. So I clicked on main, and I'll add a branch type. DSP, those are my initials, is where I would start with that. And we're going to call this migrate auth generator to setup. How's that for explicit? And now I have a new branch to work on.
So I got a quick question. That clean command that you use on Git, is that a specific one, or is it something that you set up specifically on your terminal?
Yep, that is it. That's a git command.
Okay, cool.
And I forget what the fxd stands for exactly. I think the D is for, it's probably files and directories and just like all the things. But you have to be careful there, because it'll wipe out any changes you have. So if you actually were working, you had some things that were unstashed for Git, like that'll just get rid of everything. So, which is why I like it, because I can trust that like I didn't have anything lingering from work I was doing previously.
Got it. Thanks.
My suggestion, though, like I use clean as well, David, and I've sometimes knocked out a whole bunch of code that I didn't want to get rid of.
Yeah.
So I try and what I try and do now is do git add dot and then git stash, just in case there's something there that I might need, because it has the same effect, but it just means that I might not,
Totally. And so since the beginning, I've used GitHub Desktop. And so what you're doing, Danny, I typically come over to GitHub Desktop and look for changes, and I can manage my stashes through here. So have you ever used GitHub Desktop? I feel like most people that learn Git at the command line just stick with it because that's what's intuitive. I learned about GitHub Desktop way back in the day when it first came out, and it's been really helpful to me. But have you ever used this, Danny?
Sorry, say again. I didn't get.
Oh yeah, have you ever used GitHub Desktop?
I have. I mean, for me, I don't really like. I'm a command line guy. So the only time I do use a UI, I will use the VS Code built-in one to just look at the diffs. But also, I've used various other ones. GitUp is another one, but it's just to look at visual diffs. But
right.
All commands, everything else, I always do by terminal, because I know what's happening. It just makes me more comfortable.
It's like once you know your flow. So I like to be able to look at things. So this will give you a heads up and warnings if you do have some things that are open or uncommitted in your repository. And I really like being able to look at things visually, especially the different branches in the history to go through. So this is a really helpful tool I wanted to highlight. If you're new to this whole process of Git in general, GitHub Desktop is a really helpful tool to help you manage those things, and it just gives you a little bit of guidance. And you can use the command line as well. They just work really well together. So I wanted to show that. Now I'm going to use this to create a PR too. I'll show that as well. So all right. So the next thing I need to do is this magic linking that happens. And I almost forgot something over here on my new project, my test project. It's something I typically remember later on, but I took some notes. And that's the fact that I don't have this there's not a Git project yet, so I didn't do any Git init. But I'll normally start, especially when I'm testing the code that I'm writing. I'll try something. I might be rolling it back and forth quite a bit. So it's helpful to do a Git init, and then I'm doing a Git add to this project, and then Git commit init. Right? There we go. So what that did is now this project's locked in time, and I can use versioning to go back and forth. And so that's on the left. All right. Oh, sorry, that's the project on the right. Now, I think we're going to get into linking these two projects. So this is how I can update code in the packages, and then they'll be linked locally to my project so that I can test the code there. So for example, actually, let me start here. Yarn Redwood help. And these are all the Redwood commands. Let me bring this up that you can see. Right, so these are all the commands that we have, yarn Redwood, and then Redwood. Another thing, so I could use Redwood. Another thing I did is I did this yarn RW is what I normally use. I aliased that because who likes to type yarn all the time? I don't. So I just can do Redwood. That's alias to yarn Redwood. Redwood setup and help. And let's see which commands we have available here. Oh, look at this. It's already, see, I tried to do this earlier and it thinks it's there. So maybe I need to do, what do I need? You know what I need to do? I need to do a yarn. Okay, so I have an artifact here because I this morning set up this test project to look at it, but this shouldn't be here, right? So this is one of those things we can get out of sync. So I could effectively, I could go back, oh, I did a git init. Is it going to be there? No, I should be good. So I'm talking to myself. But I've got an artifact, so I need to clean this project up. And I think what I need to do here is do a reinstall. And I'm going to do yarn force. And what yarn force, it's yarn install force. This will overwrite everything that's inside of node modules. And this will effectively is like deleting the node modules directory and then reinstalling everything. So the reason I saw that auth command inside of setup was that earlier I had done this linking and it brought over those packages and they were still there. So let me see if this worked. And if not, you'll just have to trust me because, you know. So yarn Redwood setup help, and I should not see that auth package. What did we do? What did I do? Yarn Redwood setup.
No,
That's
right, David. So the version that's published at the moment doesn't have setup.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So this makes sense.
I was so confused. Yeah, so, okay, this does make sense. So I'm running the latest version of Redwood, which is our stable version. But locally, I'm working on the main branch, which is the cutting edge. Now, there is a way to install the latest branch. I'll get to that at the end. But yeah, so that works. So yarn force, thank you. See, Danny? See, this is why I needed you. Thank you. All right, because I would have been so confused with myself. Okay, so now we can link these two projects, and I'll show you how this changes. So there is no setup command here because it actually doesn't exist in 19.2 yet. All right, so I'm working over in the framework now, and this is where I'll do my linking command. And this is a package script. There is a build and watch command, and this does two things. It's going to build every package that we have locally because you need to create, so build and then publish is the typical workflow there. You need to take the code and transpile, prepare it so it can be published to NPM. I'm not sure if we actually compile. It's all Babel stuff, so it's transpiling. But build watch is probably going to take a little bit on my computer because when I'm streaming, it slows down some node processes. But we'll see this start to spin up, hopefully. And I thought I already built everything. But then the watch is a watcher. I forget specifically what library we're using. But then what that allows us to do is every time I make a change in my framework project, it resyncs and rebuilds just for the package where those changes were made. And then I can link to it across from other projects. This doesn't seem to be working right, does it, Danny? Oh, there we go, maybe. There we go. See those pretty colors? That's how you know. That's how you know.
Video screen sharing kind of eats up your CPU.
Yes, and build takes a little bit the first time. But yeah, we'll see. So we'll let that start running. And now I'm working over in my actual project. And we have another command here. So I want to show you yarn Redwood tools help. And Redwood tools is a group of commands that are specific to helping you do development. And the one that I'll be using is Redwood tools copy and watch. Watch the Redwood path or change and copy them over to this project. And RWT is the alias for that command. And then you also need to put in the directory of your Redwood project. So that's what you'll see here. RWT, sorry, I don't have that alias. So yarn Redwood tools, RWT. That's the copy watch. And then that is the path to my framework directory over on the left. I might have gotten an infinite loop over there, Danny. What do you think? That thing's just going to keep running. It's great. Live demos for the win. Yeah, I think I'm in an infinite loop.
Is it? I think it's just building.
Still? Okay. Well, we'll see. This may not work.
If not, what we can do, David, is we can just build and watch the CLI part, because that's
Right.
what we're touching. I did that
Right.
the other day.
Okay. Yes, exactly. So I'll let it run here for a little bit while I make some changes to the code, and then we'll see what we need to do. But I don't know. We'll assume it's working correctly for now. All right. So, and Esteban, most importantly, is this workflow making some sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, very good. So open up my directory, packages, and the package I'm looking for is a CLI commands. And this is what I walked through on GitHub. Source, commands, we got to dig down in here. And I want to move that auth command that's in generate into setup. And something I know about the issue is I don't want to completely move it over. I actually need to deprecate that command. So I want it to work the old way. But I want the old way to say, this is not the way to do it anymore. You need to use a setup command. We still want it to work. So inside of generate, I have this auth directory, and I'm just going to copy that. So copy, and this is not how you typically be doing things, but we're just moving some stuff around for now. And we're going to paste that into the setup directory right there. So all those, so you'll notice in that package, there's a little bit of legwork I've already done here that you need to do, but we have some tests that we need to check out, and then we have the auth command itself, and then some other packages for auth. So I won't get into what's going on when you set up the auth command and the providers themselves, but I just want to show how that works for now, and just I'm moving things over, and that's how we're going to get this other directory. So I don't know if this is working or not. Let's give it a shot. I need to create a new terminal here in my package, and what should be happening if this is working is it will see the setup command and we'll see the auth option. It's actually another command as a part of the setup command. So let's see what's going on. Yarn Redwood help. Do we see setup? And we do. We've got setup in there, so they're linking correctly. And then yarn Redwood setup help. And it should show me the basically the nested commands that I have, and there it is. So now I've got yarn Redwood setup off. And again, this is in a bit of a loop, so it feels like things are changing. This won't happen to you normally. It's just because I'm live streaming, and the live stream gods are frowning.
This was picked up just by copying the code over, just from that folder.
Yes, exactly. So think of it as it's replicating that npm publish install process. So exactly, it's grabbing the packages locally, copying them over to my local project for testing. And so that's why I'm seeing it here. So I'm using, and this is important, so my project is now running off the bleeding edge of the code base.
Yeah,
so
I guess what I meant is because it's showing up as a viable command, is being picked up by convention over configuration, because I didn't see you like adding that command as an option.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. So I know how yargs works and how our commands are structured. So that's some of the work that kind of happened ahead of time. So that's the nature of the way we structure our commands. And there is some convention there happening with yargs. You're correct, because we set up The setup command is what's called in Yargs a directory command. So it looks for, we gave it a directory to look for, and anything in that setup directory gets added to the setup command itself. And that's because that's the way Yards works. Okay, cool, thanks. Yeah, you bet. And so the next thing is, does the command actually work, right? So this is where I want, one, is the command available, and then two, does the command work? So I know I'll show what's going on here, but auth, I could also do another help. Do you see how I'm kind of digging into the layers here of my commands, because I want to like figure out which command I am, but they're nested so I can look in specific help information. And here are my choices for a provider. And we'll go ahead and we're going to add auth0 to this command. And there's more information about this in our docs online. And actually, at the end of the command, there's this link to the doc where you could actually go see the docs for that specific command.
Give me a second. I just need to close the window. It's storming out here.
Yep. Yarn Redwood setup. And we're going to throw in auth. And we want to do auth0.
All right, back. Thanks.
Okay. And we'll see if this works. Green check marks, always good. Adding required web packages. This is where we need some music for the installation time. So Yarn is doing some installation. We use another library called Lister, L-I-S-T-R, for these packages. So we got a failure on this. I think I know there's a couple things going on here. We use Lister to manage those task manager processes. So that's actually another library that we talked about in the README for the CLI. So, okay, so I have a failure. My code's not working correctly. And there's something interesting going on here I won't get into now, but when Yarn runs other package installations, it actually can trigger my copy and watch process to reset. So not to go into now, but there's some other things that are going on here that I would need to adjust and fix. If anyone wants to work on a CLI and runs this problem, I can help you get through it. But that's how you do a test locally to find out if these things are working. But anyway, I wanted to show that I can pull in the command, link up the projects, and use my new code that's working on an existing project on my computer. So that's a process I wanted to get to here. And then I want to back out. Oh, and you can see, I could show you the code for the setup command and what's going on. It's really cool how the setup commands work. It's really easy. That's not super helpful for now, but that's all documented on the website and fun thing to test out for yourself. So next step is what I want to do. And then let me get to pause here in a second. Oh, that's not letting me. Give me just a second. I need to stop these build processes. I'll stop the Yarn build over here. And I want to take a couple steps forward. So I have some changes that I've made, and I want to commit those and create a PR. Now things aren't working, but that's actually okay. I want to show you. I'm going to create a PR, but I'm going to create a draft PR and show the code where it is. And I want to be able to show, talk about the things I need to do next because it's not ready. But before I create a PR and submit, there's a few other things I want to do locally to make sure that this code is working. So we have a couple commands that you can run. And one, we have lint test. We use ESLint. And we have Redwood test themselves. So this project has already been built. So something that often is a hang-up for running the test locally. So I tested the functionality of my code, and I know I have some issues because I've done this before. I actually know what those are. But I actually want to also test my code base and make sure that things are working there. We have jest unit tests, and we have ESLint. So I wanted to show what that process looks like locally as well. So yarn build is what I would need to do before I can do any lint tests. But I've already done that. I've been running the build command every time. So now, after I've run yarn build, often the lint will just fail, and it's because we didn't run yarn build first. But I could run my lint tests. And we're going to get a lot of warnings here. And that's okay. If anyone wants to come through and help us clean up all of our warnings and lints, not all of them are real. We need to do some lint configuration. We would welcome the help. But mainly I want to look for any errors with lint locally before I create a PR. So there we go. We only have 136 problems. Warnings, there's fix command. I'm not going to get to that now. Again, I was looking for errors. We don't have errors, and that's good. The next thing I would be running is going to be the yarn test. And this is and again, I'm working in the framework, so these commands are all package.json scripts. So not to be confused with our CLI commands. You could find those here. Let me go back up to the main directory. Every package has package.json, but this is what I'm referencing right here, are these scripts. So you can see what scripts are available. And I have a test script. I'm not going to run the test script for the entire project. I'm in the RedwoodJS Redwood root directory. I want to just run the test for CLI. These tests take a bit of time. So if I go to packages, oh, not yarn, packages in the CLI package, now I can just run the tests for this package itself. And this will run through all of the unit tests that are inside of the CLI package. I'm actually not sure if this is going to work because I didn't look into the tests. When I moved the tests over and I copied them over from the generator command into the setup command, I didn't look at the test. That's the next thing I need to do to actually get this PR fully submitted. Oh, there we go. The tests, well, we'll see if they pass fully. I think they're passing, but I would need to handle that as well. Esteban, have you ever used Jest for unit tests before?
Very briefly, just like playing around with it, not on a proper production thing.
You and me both. So I'm learning Jest. We have some people in the community that are exceptional with Jest. And ideally, whenever a PR comes through, we want to add tests to that. There's a lot of tests already created, so often it's just looking at what's there, and that's an easier way to go. Creating a new test, for me, that can be challenging depending on what I'm testing. So we have a few people in the community. Just ask. And there's a lot of people that can help with the testing side of things. But the good news is we passed. And so that's it for the local. So that would be my final step locally to say, and tests don't have to pass locally if you're creating a draft PR. Maybe you actually need to create a PR to ask someone how to help you with some tests. But I wanted to show you what you're trying to get to locally, ideally, before you create a PR. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
So just one thing that you skipped over. We're assuming that you already coded all this odd code, and we just skipped over because it was already done for time, right?
Yeah, I'm skipping over some steps here, but this is actually a real state. So ideally, I'd get all this done and all be working, and my code testing that I was doing in my local project would have worked, right? So that'd be ideal. I actually know what the issues are there. And yes, I could fix those, but for time I'm not now. But I also want to say it's okay to create a draft PR, which is what I'm going to do, and ask questions and say what's not working and where you need some help. Because a great way for people to be able to help you is to see the code that you're working on. So that's okay. You don't have to have something. Actually, the earlier you create a PR in the process, oftentimes that's the best practice because it gets the right conversation going. So does that make sense? And was that your question?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think creating a draft PR actually helps loosen the mood. Like sometimes you can be too stressed about getting things right at first.
Totally.
But getting the help from people will actually guide you through, following the best practices or the practices that are being followed at the project. So yeah, I like that welcoming way to do things.
Yeah, you bet. So thank you. I'm glad we got to talk about that because that's one of those intimidation factors. And I'll tell you some other things. This would be a good question to come back to, like what makes a good PR. So let's loop back to that. And I would say like brilliant code is not what makes a great PR, right? The communication around the PR, readable code, like solving things in chunks so it's not a massive commit. So having smaller PRs that are more digestible as a reviewer, those are the things that make a great PR. And and always having someone review is a part of the process. So yeah, we very much welcome PRs in process, as long as there's communication and context around it, right? That's what helps make it better. So typically, some people, like, there's a lot of ways you could commit these changes. VS Code's got a great place to do that. You could do it here at the command line. I want to show GitHub Desktop now because I want to show how I can easily create a PR inside of GitHub Desktop. So these are my changes. Here are the same changes. I would just say, what do we do? We migrated. I'm just going to call this step 1. Migrated auth to, that's not even migrated yet. Step 1, copied auth. Again, that's my shortcut to setup directory. Okay, and I'm committing these locally. And here, see, I just love clicking buttons. So I'm now ready. Well, actually, one more step, and I'd be ready to publish this branch. I want to check and see if anything happened to the main branch while I was working. I'll have to do this once I create the PR and afterward, and then it would re-trigger the CI. So I'm just going to do this before I create the PR. But again, GitHub Desktop, I like to see things visually. I could select a branch I want to compare it to. So that's the main branch. And I can see that I'm up to date. I'm not behind. I am ahead. If I was behind, it's very easy to merge from main into my branch, and also between GitHub Desktop and VS Code, there's a really nice workflow for any merge conflicts that you have. I like that. It works really well for me because everybody's favorite thing is merge conflicts, so I try to find the most efficient way to do that.
So, and you're merging to main because that's how you usually do things, or just because you're one of the core contributors? Like normally there's a dev branch, or
yeah, that's a great question. We talked about that early on about how we want to have a branch management strategy, and right now what we decided is we'll have one branch that we're comparing to and deploying from for releases, and that's main. Once we get to V1 and beyond, that will need to become a little more complicated, so lots more structure there. But for right now, it just kept our efficiency going. So all PRs are against main, and that's it. And as the core contributors, we're managing if we need to get patch release and how we do that. But right now, it's just main. So there's only one branch that you'll ever PR against, and that's main. And don't worry, you won't ever be able to commit or push directly to main yourself. Like, we just got the settings on that. So if you're able to create a PR, it's fine. You're doing it safely and you're not about to blow anything up.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is that also, like, even though it's going into main doesn't mean that it becomes available to everyone. It becomes an RC or a canary. I'm not sure which one, David.
Yeah, canary.
But for me, as a user, to have access to that code, there would need to be an official release that David or Peter, one of the core members, will usually do. So it's nothing too worrying. There have been times where I've created a PR, I've spoke to someone about, I don't know how to test this properly. And sometimes in those situations, the best thing to do, let's merge it, build it with Canary, and then just see if it's working. So yeah, even though there's no develop, but main is almost to develop, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, it does to me. And everyone, I'm watching the time. I know we're over. I was thinking we'd be done. This will be a quick part of the process, and we'll go to discussions. But if you have to roll, understood. Thank you for sticking around. I love that we're getting into the details here. Because this is recorded, this is going to be great, and we'll get it up on YouTube. So I wanted to make sure we spent the time. But we probably have about 2 to 3 more minutes of this process, and we'll open up for discussions. So I just published the branch to GitHub. So that was my DSP migrate branch, and now I'll click this button to create a pull request. And it set everything up for me. And then also I want to be able to reference this issue in my pull request. So pull this up. So this is issue 113. So this is the auth migration for number, and I'm referencing that other issue to create some context around the work that I'm doing here. So that's why it's helpful to have those issues, especially when you have one issue that'll have multiple PRs associated with it. This is not a good title for this, but this is migrate auth generator command to setup. Okay, so what are some things that I have here? That said, these are some to-dos. I think given time, I'd explain a little bit more what I'm doing here, but I know that there's a few things that I haven't done yet, right? So this is like fix installation error locally. I've got some testing I need to do there. Those are the errors that you saw going on. And I want to add deprecation command and output messages. All right, so I've got some to-dos in process. A little more text here would be helpful. Also, I'm going to assign a reviewer to this. Now, not everyone can do this, but everybody has PRs reviewed. So Dom has done a lot of work on our CLI packages specifically. So I'd get his help with some of the way that I built this out when I'm ready to review it. Typically, I wouldn't have someone review it until I'm ready to go, but I want to show that part of the process. And then I hit the green button, and I'm going to create a pull request. Oh, one other thing, sorry, scrolling down, it's helpful to see just making sure that you've got the right files that have been changed. You can see that after you create the pull request, but that's normally a good check to do. And then create the pull request. Oh, where was the draft? I want to turn this into a draft. But the CI gets triggered. So the same things that I did, lint, build, run the tests, all those tests and things that I did locally in my framework, this is now running that on both, so Ubuntu, so Linux, it's going to test node 14 and 12, and it gets Windows. So because we support Windows as well. And that's a helpful test because I work on Linux, so there might be things happening on Windows that that I miss because I'm not on a Windows machine. My test will tell me if that's the case. And then why, there it is, convert to draft. This is a draft issue. So that's a button right over here. I'm not ready for anyone to fully do a review on this and submit it because I have some work to be done. And so that shows up as a draft issue now. And if I go back to the pull requests, I can see it's right there at the top, and it's a draft. And so that signals to anyone else in the community and reviewers that this is still a work in progress. But I could ask my questions, and that's just the right state to have it in. I want to talk about canaries as well. Let me do this really quickly, but yeah, so Danny and Esteban, that's how I create a PR. I whipped through it pretty quickly, but any questions about that part of the process as well?
No, it's all clear.
Okay.
There's one
So
on the
that's-
chat, though, I think is worth responding to.
Yes.
So Chris is asking, when you create the PR, should we put closes issue number in so that it automatically closes the issue or not?
Yeah, that's okay. That's a great question. So what happened? Yes, you should. And so the reason I didn't do that on this one is, I'll edit that and show what happened. So Chris was asking, so if this PR would complete the issue itself, I would have done something like fixes or closes. And that's really helpful because what that means is when this PR is merged, it will automatically close the issue that was associated with the PR. And that's really helpful. It's a way of cleaning up as we go. I didn't do that here because it won't close that issue. This was just, if we go back to that issue, you'll notice that this is just, so I could actually update, I won't do it now, but I could update this issue and say this step, and that's all that I was working on, is in progress in pull request, what number was I on? 1309. So I would link it that way, but someone else might want to come and pick this up And it wouldn't be until these both were done that this issue would be closed. The last thing I want to show you is quickly that there is a way to install main without having to set all this up into your project, and that's called canary releases. So every time that a PR is merged, it triggers, so upgrade Prisma, it triggers these actions. And one of our GitHub actions is, let me see if we can find one down here, is to publish canaries. And those are, so every PR merged has a canary published to NPM. So every time that happens. And you can find those on NPM. Let me see, I'll just go to create Redwood app because it would be there. So all the packages are published with every canary. And you would see here under versions, right? So here's the latest canary, 19.2, canary 51. So this is the bleeding edge code. It is not considered stable. But if you had a PR that was merged because you needed something in your project and you wanted to test it, you would upgrade to the canary in order to actually install those packages on your machine. And the command to do that, I'll show you right here. I'm bumping around a little bit, but this is my Redwood project. And the command for that is yarn redwood upgrade. And there's some help, but there's a tag command. Tag, and you would type canary. And that will upgrade you to the very latest canary across all your packages. Note, there's an issue about this right now, so look at something at the issues. There's one more step you have to do, but typically that's all you would need to do to install the bleeding edge packages in your local project. And I think that's it. I might click off my screen share. I can come back to it, but let's see if we've got questions or anything else happening. I think that's all. You guys did great.
Thanks, you were awesome.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. So
You did all the work.
well, I need some help. So Esteban, let's open up to some questions here. So I know that's a lot of steps, and I went slowly, but I mean, really sincere question. Do you feel like you could do that? Because if you can't, we want to keep creating tooling that makes it possible for anyone to contribute, right? Because there's a lot going on. It's a big code base. But do you feel like you at least could take a stab and have a chance at being successful with that?
Yeah, definitely. One thing is to follow the process, like, getting there. The other thing that I'll feel a little bit more concerned about being a first-time contributor is, getting the code right. Does that make sense? What you just showed us was the process on how to get it there. But, that's just getting it there. It's not doing the work. And the one thing that I will, even though we just went through all of this, one thing that I will appreciate, and it might be there, is just a quick guide on what the steps are when contributing. So having just a small text on you need to run the test. You need to check with main before you commit the PR. Just like a quick guide on how to contribute. I don't know if it's there, but that will definitely help.
Yes, so the documents that we started with, there's one on the RedwoodJS website contributing, and that's really the high level. Here's where you find the other documents and how things are organized. When you're working on the project, the framework itself, that contributing.md file, that has the steps that I went through. So if you remember at the very beginning where I started with the workflow, like the copy and watch workflow, that will actually walk you through the commands and the steps. That's in the framework project contributing.md. And if that's confusing, we need help. Like, actually, a wonderful PR would be, this makes the contributing.md instructions more clear. Does that make sense? Like, that's a super simple PR, right? Because if they're not clear, it's train wreck city, right? So, okay, very cool. Esteban, thank you. I want to open up. I want to get Tom back up here, and let's take some more questions that people can stick around. But thank you. That was really helpful, and that's the first time that we've ever recorded the contribution process. So really helpful to go through it in detail, and really helpful to have your questions along the way.
Cool. All right. How do I get myself out?
I just have to gently nudge you. So.
All right.
Thanks, Esteban. Yeah, it's weird. We have no control of ourselves. Like you were the puppet master, huh?
It is there. It's hard to find. You have to click. Actually, I don't know where that was, but anyway, there's a little X up at the top of your screen, and then that would do it. Well, let's do some questions. I think we only have a couple questions there, but if anyone wants to jump up on stage and ask your questions, you're welcome to as well. So we've got some more time. Happy to do that. Just let me know, and I'll invite you up on the stage to do that. Get Rob up here as well, but I think we can have up to 6 people, and you don't have to do your video as well if you just want to do audio, so that's fine. But I'll go over to the questions tab. We can start from there, and if anyone else in chat wants to jump on up, let's do that. So Forrest had a question: should contributors squash their PRs into a single commit, or can the core team resolve that if and when they approve and merge the PR? Just real quick, GitHub now allows you to set the default for merging is squash and merge. And this is because I may have accidentally merged a couple 100 commit PRs before when I was doing the initial, I think Peter changed the setting after, when I added the contributors for the first time, I created a script that would grab contributors and add them. And it was using this bot, and I literally had 120 commits to create that. And one of my to-do items on the PR was squash this before I merge it, and I didn't do that. I boosted my stats though, it was awesome. But anyway, automatically, by default, we squash and merge PRs.
Yeah, definitely you don't have to worry about that. You should worry about getting your thing working the way that you want. We'll handle cleaning up the timeline if that's something that we're interested in doing.
Yeah, and it's not a big deal. It doesn't really change anything.
I never do it. I prefer the commits just being the way that the commits were written personally. So it's not a big concern for me. Either. I mean,
agreed.
I don't care, honestly.
My commits are a little more granular than yours are. Especially when I'm exploring, my commits get really granular. And so one of your commits is probably 10 of mine. So I think that's where I would be. No one needs to see that mess. But anyway, okay. So Johnny had a question. So presumably, average Joe Joan is forking and submitting a PR to the main from their fork. Like us mortals presumably can't push new branches to the Redwood repo. Yep, that's exactly it. So no, there are a couple people, but assume no one can actually push directly to main. And that's just a default setting in our repository. So the only way you could get code into the main branch is through a PR. So it's great, you can't screw it up. Question from Chris: Redwood uses a bunch of generators. I'm unfamiliar with creating generators. Is there a solid location to read up on creating generators if we want to help out in this area? Ooh, I like that question. Yeah, I mean, yes. What do we? Yeah, what's a good next step there? There's a lot we could talk about the generators. Yeah, someone else jump in. Rob. Do you want to jump in and help on this one too?
I think
Do we have
struggling to join.
Do we have like a generator contributing document that is specific about generators? And I mean, we'll need one for setup, because that'll be something that a lot of people I think will want to do, is say, how do I integrate such and such? I would be happy to do that and create a setup script. And how do I do that? So if we don't have, I don't know if we have docs around that. Rob, do you know? Do we have like a generators contributing document? The setup one will be very similar.
I thought there was something in there.
Yeah, did you see the README? So Dom just linked to the one. I tried to start there. In the CLI package, there's a readme.md, and that goes through the generator specifically, like how do you actually add code, because the templates are there. But we don't have that for setup, and we'll need something for how you would add new commands in setup directory as well.
The setup directory, I find the code really, really approachable as well, especially because it's a nice kind of isolated part of the CLI that doesn't depend on a lot of things. So until we add that document, the existing functions there look really good to me. That's what I used to do the last setup function I did.
Yeah, there is a bunch of a big chunk of generator documentation in that CLI README. I would just say before you start working on one, let us know, because a bunch of stuff is moving to that setup command instead. So some of it might belong under setup, right, instead of generate. So we'll see. So let us know before you start working on those.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a forum topic. Well, a topic that comes up a lot, I know it's been on the forums, is how do we make generator templates extensible, right? Like, what if I want to modify or make my own generators for my project? And we can't do that yet, but that's a very interesting topic. It'll be post version 1 of Redwood. But the idea of anyone being able to customize or add or extend generators is, that's a really powerful concept, and something that not happening. There is conversation about it happening. You could find throughout the, wherever you can find conversation about GitHub, that topic's probably come up, but that's not to come yet until post V1.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's an open issue for that. And by the end of that conversation, I think we realized it's probably not that hard, like if somebody wanted to do it. Because right now the generators always look in a certain directory for the templates to start from. So you just have it look in your app code first, and if it exists there, use it. Otherwise, use the one in the template. So I don't think it would actually be that hard to do. Someone could probably knock that out in like a day or two if they really want.
Well, that's really interesting. And then we could use this setup command to like install a flavor of generators, right?
Right.
And then you would have those generators accessible. That's fun. That's real fun.
That would be a fun issue if someone wanted to work on it.
Look,
We should totally do that.
this is working, guys. All right, what else? My brain is totally fried. I feel like I'm like goo over here.
Does anybody want to come up on stage and join us in the video chat? You're welcome.
Ooh, another
Rob
question.
has a question about his camera. Everyone loves Rob's camera.
That's
Rob's
right.
the same one, by the way.
This is a Fuji X-T4. I don't know if it's the camera so much as just having a blurry background. So just my lens is at like f2.8, so it gets nice and blurry. So if I come forward,
I can blur too. I just don't. There's just nothing in the background to blur.
yeah. Tom has like a 1.4 f1.4 on his, so his gets super, like even his shoulders are blurry. You can see when it focuses on his face. Yeah, you can get a really nice camera. Like I don't know, like how much was the Sony? It was like 700.
I used the Sony A6400, and it was like the body itself was like $800 or something.
Yeah, which isn't cheap, but I mean a nice
1.4 lens was another $800 though.
Yeah, I mean a real nice webcam is probably like a couple $100, but if you get a nice like mirrorless camera, I mean if you got a great camera just to go and take pictures with, but it also makes a really nice webcam.
Yeah, a lot of the old ones are hard to turn into webcams though. I had an old Canon 5D Mark III that you can do it, but it turns off after 30 minutes, like no matter what. Like you can't have it in movie mode stay on longer than 30 minutes. So you're like on a call and it's like, it just goes black. You have to cycle it and then it comes back on.
This is actually a film simulation mode right now. It's like kind of crispy. And let me go back to this normal. Here's my normal like video stream there. But the Fuji has all kinds of really nice, like it simulates old Fuji films. That's what one of those moments was there.
I got it. So Tifan's still here. I saw a question about I-18N, so internationalization. And so Norm Munich, Thomas, he's the one that added the setup command for the first time. He brought in 2 commands for setup. One was he migrated Tailwind over, and 2, he added a setup I-18N.
Yeah, I saw that in the list that you were rocking there. I didn't even know about it, so I got to check that out.
Yeah, so if you do this, Stephen, if you guys do yarn Redwood setup I-18N, take a look at that, and it's a lot of things. So it's the packages. I don't know. I know very little about this in the JavaScript ecosystem, but I've done it previously, but on a PHP code base. So I-18N, and then it sets up packages, and then all of the initial settings you need. It creates all of that config for you as well. And I think there were a couple of things it did, but thus the magic of the setup command. So that command came in. Danny, yesterday, or I think this morning, we merged the PR for like a Webpack template. So you can set up Webpack, and it'll create the initial Webpack config boilerplate that you need for your local project. And that could even come with a bunch of flavors. So someone could add options to the Webpack for things you want to set up in Webpack with templates.
The setup command isn't out though, right? Like that's
No,
not
that'll be
not in
that'll
19.
be
So we gotta wait for 20. Oh, 20.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about where we're delineating setup versus generate, but the theory was like generate would be stuff you do a lot. So you're generating pages, you're generating cells, do that multiple times. Versus the setup command is like a one-time thing. Like you set up Tailwind, you do that once, and now Tailwind's always there. Or you set up auth, you do that once, and it's always there. So setup is one time, generator is recurring generation.
Oh, I saw though, David, when you ran the auth, you did set up auth 0. I thought we decided to have a single namespace and just be set up auth 0.
Yes. So, well, that was me going through the live code thing. That's another question to have around that. Because of the way Yarg's directory structure works, we can have setup and then a command, right? So auth, and then we could have, oh yeah, that's right, we're gonna get back to it. And then we can have the options there, but you're right, that's gonna get really fuzzy when we go into some other, being able to chain commands together. So Dom and I talked about this last week. We actually have to probably configure Yarg's, we're gonna have to customize our own directory for how Yarg's works in order to be able to chain those commands. So anyway, all that said, what I showed you is what Yarg's does out of the box. But you're right, if we do it that way, I wouldn't be able to do yarn Redwood setup, I18 in, Tailwind, auth. I can't do all of that at once and create that recipe.
Well, and there's questions about, like we had talked about being able to do a setup command, but just give it a URL to like an external plugin so that you wouldn't even have to have it be part of Redwood. Like anyone could write a setup command and then you could just run it from a URL, right? So you wouldn't, we'd have official Redwood ones, but then like anybody could write one.
Yeah. So Danny, tell Tom about your experience last week. So Dom was taking a look at the URLs, so being able to drop that in. And then Danny did a setup test last week that was cool.
Yeah, so before that, David, I was thinking like with auth, you could use Inquirer. So maybe when you do setup auth, it just gives you a list of providers that you choose. Maybe that's an option. And in terms of doing a remote setup, the thing that I did was I created a fake setup module that you install on your project, and then you can just run yarn setup, Redwood setup, and give it like a -- module or something, and it triggers the setup file from that node module. It's the same idea as a URL, but you have an npm module.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I mean, just some external place, right? Something that's not installed when you install Redwood. So, but if it's an npm package, that's great too. That works. That's perfect.
Yeah, that'd be cool, and or both. But yeah, and I just added to my list. Yeah, you're totally right, Tom. We need each of those auth providers needs to become a specific command. So auth 0, that works, but netlify auth.
Yeah, netlify.
Yeah, Firebase auth, because Firebase could be deployed, etc. We've got I've got another question that's a good one. Tushar, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'd love to meet you if you want to jump up and ask more about this. But he asked, this is actually not, he said it's a noob question, but this is actually new to everyone. There are two packages. So one is API and one is API server. API is for GraphQL, my guess, but what is API server for? Yeah, a couple things. API package is the web API. So that's in your project. Now, when you're developing locally, there's this dev server, and that's what we were using to spin up and do development on your Redwood project locally, the dev server. And that was kind of mimicking what would happen when you deployed your API serverlessly. Now, this API server command is new. And what that does is it's using Express to do long-running kind of traditional server so that we can, this is coming soon, we could containerize your API, containerize your whole application, and then deploy it. So for example, Google Cloud Run, which we have a PR in for Google Cloud Run, uses containers to do a kind of serverless AWS Lambdas. So we needed to have containerized versions of both the API. Well, the web's easy to do in a container, but and that's what API server. So there's no information about the API server package out yet, but that's what it'll do. And we've got some cool things coming for containerization. Good question. Good eyes. That's going to be fun to look with. What else? Oh, the camera stuff. Well, we are, maybe go for another 5 minutes, but yeah, we crushed this one. Does anyone have any more questions? And for everyone still here, thanks for sticking around.
I have a question.
Dude,
How and when do we decide to cut a real release? Like when do we do .19 versus .20 versus? I'm sure people. I'm assuming.
When the feeling arises, you just know. You just feel it in your bones.
We talked about doing it on a more regular basis, like once a week, but we haven't really stuck to that.
Yeah. So it depends. Yeah, it just depends. We do. I always think, let's see if we can get a release out this week, right? So that's. I think releasing. This is a great process. These are the kind of questions with open source that you figure it out as you go. But we need to have a better release schedule. I think, yeah, Rob, you're right. We're always kind of like, should we release this week or not? Like, what do we have to release? This is a longer period. I think the longest we've gone is like 3 weeks. I think our average is probably like a week and a half between releases. We're really trying to get new code out. Peter's on vacation this week, and there's some things in the code base, the main branch now, that we just need Peter to make sure he can do some QA on before we get it out. And we also broke a few things. So in main, well, actually in 19.2, our Redwood unit tests don't work. So yarn Redwood test is broken. So that's the holdup right now. But right then that becomes a log jam. Like if we're not releasing regularly, then we get this big load of like this waterfall of things we have to get through to get a release out. So trying to release more often than not.
Yeah, I think you try to balance the work of rolling a new package, which is not trivial, with the desire to get code out often. So it's just, a couple of weeks seems about right. Like it's got to be enough, because then you put it in front of people and you're like, hey, we broke this thing. You got to run, this new thing or change this code. And you don't want to have to necessarily do that every single week, but you also don't want the number of changes that you have to manage in a single upgrade to be so vast that you're like, I can't handle this much stuff. So it's just a balance. It's just a balancing act of what feels right. And the answer, Anthony, is essentially, yeah, cause that's what it boils down to. It's just managing that balance.
Yeah, it seems like Prisma is much more like, don't they have like, what is it, every other Tuesday or every other Thursday? They like have a point release, like no matter what, it seems like. I don't know if we plan to do something like that once we hit 1.0, or are we still just going to be like, whatever it feels good?
Well,
I don't know. It seems weird to fit it to a specific schedule. Like I have enough constraints in my life. I don't need artificial constraints around releasing, or it's like, well, we don't have enough that really warrants a new release. It's been 2 weeks. Like, why force it? Why be like, oh, well, here's this one trivial bug fix. Like, I don't know, like that almost nobody hits. Like, is it worth the effort to roll a new release in that case? I don't know. I like the system that we have. Like it happens when it needs to happen. Right. And we use our judgment to do it. Like, why do we need external arbitrary forces making us do things?
Yeah. I don't know. On a high level, and we've all run different types of projects. Tom, you've run a very large project before. And so I think we came to this and everybody had different ways of wanting to organize things or processes. Like I'm used to branch management. So, and Esteban asked that earlier, like, what am I going to PR against? And I was like, oh yeah, we should have a dev branch and all these things. But what we boiled down to, I think, in those conversations in like where we are in the project is like, what's the most efficient and just makes sense? Like, we're always balancing over-organizing with organizing just enough. And that's actually pretty fun at this stage of a project to be able to do, to where we don't need to organize until we need to. And we definitely don't want to organize because it actually slows things down. in some regards. Maybe that's just me because I love this in process. You guys
Well,
can
related-
check.
Related question, Anthony asks, maybe a noob question, absolutely not. But why are breaking tests making it into a release instead of being caught in a canary release? A fine question.
We got to go.
Man.
Right? Thanks for joining us.
I think Forrest's question is something I was wondering myself. If you guys had some thoughts.
Well, I want to answer Anthony's question is a good
That's-
one, and it's because we don't have the right processes. We need to add a process that makes sure that we're running the right checks before we make a release, and when that didn't happen, right? So this is how the world always is. Like you go along in your merry way, and then you break something doesn't go right, and then you're like, ah, crap, okay. Why did that happen? Analyze why it happened, and then put some piece of process in place so that you don't do that same thing again. That was a mistake. So we made a mistake. So we need to analyze why it happened and put in process to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Yeah. But it didn't get released, huh? Well, I guess the testing stuff did. But right.
Yeah,
So that's,
tests are broken in 019 too, right?
yeah, that's
Like
that.
they break when you try to run them.
Yeah.
So we didn't catch it. We didn't do enough testing before we released it, and now we will figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, and actually, so I didn't talk about it because we didn't have time. We have a Cypress end-to-end test framework built into the framework project. So Cypress is a framework, but in our framework repo, if you go to contributing.md, you can see how to run an end-to-end test locally, and we always do that before cutting a new release. What we don't test for in that is at the end of, so it spins up a project, installs the canaries, and then it runs through tutorial. And then we're checking it. We have all these steps, and we're checking to see if anything breaks. And we always test deploy, but the thing we haven't been testing with our E2E test was, can we run Yarn Redwood test at the end, right? We also don't test, can we run Yarn Redwood storybook at the end? And so that's what we need to add now as the next test or end-to-end suite is, do these other workflow process tools work on a new release or on a canary version? And
this is also why we're working on the tutorial, which will cover very specifically testing and storybook and some other things that will then we will make sure that tutorial doesn't break, and so we'll have a similar end-to-end test for those. And we just haven't. Yeah, it was an oversight, and we'll fix it.
But running tests and storybook weren't on Redwood itself. It was an app built with Redwood, right? Like at the end of the tutorial, run the test and storybook on the tutorial app. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, we broke user testing, users testing their own apps, right? Because we didn't have it in our testing process, we didn't catch it.
We'll blame Peter for that. He's not here.
In the future, we will.
The other guys.
Okay. Danny, you were going to go over Forrest's question. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to point it out. I wasn't sure if you guys saw it. It's a good question, I think. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, well, I'll read it because I don't know if these chats go along with the recording. But Forrest asks, I was making a small contribution recently to the setup tailwind command, and I was wondering about the TypeScript transition. I'm trying to learn TypeScript, but in the meantime, is it okay if we contribute to .js files, or am I making more work for the TypeScript contributors? I'd say don't worry about us. Like if you want to make a contribution, like go for it. Like we'll catch things up, and like adding a small thing there isn't gonna like break our lives. Like we will catch up, and then like contributions will be for the TypeScript thing, which will get compiled down to the JavaScript thing, and like that world will be awesome when we get there. But I don't want the TypeScript transition to slow anyone down. So like if you're motivated to contribute to JavaScript, like make it happen. Totally, 100%.
Yep, there are. Yeah, and to confirm, Peter and I have had this conversation several times. If something exists currently in JavaScript, don't even hesitate to add and fix something in JavaScript. That's totally fine. New code or new things, that's where Peter's been helping out. Because the other side is if you want to learn TypeScript, we have some amazing TypeScripters. We have some people in the community that are very well experienced in TypeScript, and that's a fun thing to ask, so it's a great way to learn. But don't let it hold you up. If you want to try TypeScript, this is definitely the place to try it, because there's people who can help you out.
Another one from Oh, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I was gonna say Forrest just said, how far along is the new tutorial version? I'm excited to hear it's in the works. Yep, so what we're gonna do is we wanna be able to start the second half of the tutorial from like a snapshot of the first one. So if you haven't gone through the first one, or if you just kind of middled through it or just watched the videos, you wouldn't have anything to start with version 2. So I've gone through, I completed the first tutorial, snapshot of that basically into GitHub, and then I'm styling it. So it'll also have styling, because if at the end of the first one, it's not the easiest thing to follow because everything is Times New Roman and sort of left aligned and chunked together. So it's going to be some really simple style. So it'll actually have Tailwind in there to start with. And we'll say, okay, to start with the second version, go ahead and pull down this repo and we'll start playing along there. So I just finished styling it up yesterday. It's actually in GitHub. It's a Redwood-tutorial repo I added in the Redwood organization. And today I'm going to start on building a new feature with Storybook. So what we're going to do is I think we're going to add a comments engine to the blog. So be able to leave comments. And what we'll do is we'll start building that in Storybook first, style it up, get it to look the way we want, and then plug it into the existing blog post, page display thing. And then we'll have some role-based authentication. So maybe we'll be able to have like a moderator. So you yourself will be able to create blog posts, and then you'll actually have a moderator role you can give to other people that they can delete like spammy comments, but they can't create blog posts themselves. That's where the role-based stuff will get involved. And then, like we said, tests are kind of broken right now, but eventually they'll be able to do tests. So I'd probably go through Storybook, add the tests for it, plug it in. I just can't do the tests half right now, so I'll focus on the Storybook half. But yeah, it should be good.
Gonna be amazing, and maybe even award-winning someday.
That's right. Yeah, we're thinking this is kind of like the I don't know if we have an official name for it, but sort of the Redwood flow, like what we imagine using Redwood would be, where you start from Storybook, you build out your component kind of in isolation, and then you plug it into your bigger app, have your tests for it, and you just keep iterating on your app that way. Storybook, tests, plug it in. Storybook, tests, plug it in. That's sort of our vision for the Redwood way to build an app.
Yeah. And this conversation came up a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sharing this to share what we're learning, is we started feeling really intimidated by V1. And with any project, whenever you're trying to hit a milestone and ship it, there's just this like exponential overhead thing that happens the closer you get to a deadline. And it just feels like there's more things to do. It's like that final 20% of the push always feels like it's got the most amount of work to it. And I was feeling that with version 1. And like we're just looking at a lot of different places. Well, we said, well, how do we get here in the first place? We started with the tutorial, and we built the features and wrote the code so we could implement the tutorial. We need to do that again. We need to get back to this tutorial-driven development process. So what do we want version 1 to feel like from the developer experience? And we just went back to that process. So Rob's going to take a stab at I can't do it anymore, at the tutorial. And then we're going to build V1 to the tutorial, to part 2.
Right. So, yeah, you ever hear that old adage in development where the first 90% project takes 90% of the time, and the last 10% of the project takes the other 90% of the time?
That is true. I've not heard that, but
it's funny because it's true.
Pareto rule. Yeah, Pareto, though, his math was better than our math. Oh man, this is great. I think we got some things working today. I've already updated my PR with the other things I need to do in it. So I might just kill that thing. Need to start over. We do have an issue with our tooling. So what was going on when you have the two projects linked with Redwood tools and you run an installation into your local project, it breaks the copy, like it breaks Redwood tools linking. So what happens is when I'm trying to test that auth command, as soon as it installs an auth package, it breaks the link, and now it's using the other, like the 19.2 in this case.
Oh, interesting.
Package, right? So, yep, that's it. Just so I know what the hiccup is there. So it looks like things are actually working, or it looks like things aren't working when they actually might be. It's just because the local process isn't working.
Well, I was using it to work on the router, and it's beautiful. It's just like run this command here, in Redwood, run this command here in your project, and like I was just changing stuff. It
So
copies
good.
it, builds it, and copies it over, and the app reloads. And I'm using the new Redwood, infrastructure, and it just makes developing the infrastructure bits like so easy. Like it's amazing. So amazing work on that. Whoever, I think that was probably
That was Peter. Yeah.
worked on that. But like it's so slick compared to what we used to have to do. Like it's a pleasure to work with now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for that, the CLI package is its own beast. It just always has something else that's a hiccup in it. But yeah, when for actually developing and writing code, it's
when you're
really
doing
simple.
other Yarn installs, like that's the fiddly bit, right? Like it's having to pretend like it's loading these Redwood in as a node package, and then you run Yarn, and it's like, oh God, what happened? Like I don't know what the hell happened to my world, and so I can see how it would get confused. But it's really, really nice to work with now. And we'll fix whatever the issues are that's causing.
I created an issue about that issue.
Great.
Yeah. See. All right. We might have done it. Apparently, some other people are still here, but we'll get this recording going. How did livestorm.co work for everyone?
Well, we'll see how the recording turns out. I think that's it's very similar to what we were doing before, but the experience for the user is very, very similar. I really like that there's only one chat thing instead of having like on Hopin, there was like chat and event, and you're like, where am I supposed to be? I don't understand. And so this is much simpler for this use case. And I think the recording that you showed me before, like it actually shows the whole screen recording big instead of it being one of the like little tiny windows and it's impossible to see. So if it does that better, then that'll be a vast improvement.
Yeah.
And the questions thing is nice too. Like that's kind of a nice feature.
I do like the questions.
Nice if you could join and remove yourself, but
Yeah.
I guess you can't do that.
It's I know
That's
what's
where
going on there.
like if I want to jump in while someone's presenting because like they don't realize that something's wrong, like I have no way to like add myself.
Yeah, I don't have ways to add other moderators, right? There's no permissions to this. They just make you sign up for I would have to add other account. I don't know. It's kind of strange. So that is
They need some
bummer.
role-based authentication.
They do.
I think we should just build it in Redwood.
I agree. What are we doing? Let's roll our own. It's always
Danny, I like your Danny's got his accent lights going on. He's got the red and blue, the ice and fire. It's nice. Was that on purpose?
I always have it on, like these color schemes, but I just changed it so that for once you can actually see me. Usually it's so dark you can't see anything.
Yeah, it looks. I was going to ask if you got a new camera. It looks really nice. A lot brighter.
No, it's just I increased the lighting on this side.
Turns out he just turned lights on.
Oh man. All right, lunchtime here. I'm gonna go do that thing. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks, David.
We'll catch
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thanks for the contributions. It's been fun this month. So go Hacktoberfest, and we'll see you guys. We look forward to seeing your PRs.
Yeah, hope to see you on GitHub or Discord or Discourse or Twitter or anywhere. Thanks.
Esteban, we'd love to send you some free stickers because that's all we have. But you definitely earn them. Does everybody know about stickers? Go to the Redwood website. We'll ship you stickers anywhere in the world. So it's pretty fun.
RedwoodJS.com/stickers.
Go get them. Oh, Chris just got his. Pretty fun.
Everyone, go get a Fuji camera.
I need to see how many requests there are. There's probably like 1,000 from Jamstack.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
probably were. Stephen, thanks for joining. It's been great to see you back in GitHub and everywhere. So welcome back. All right, everyone. Have a good day. I'm ending webinar now.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye all.